with no hope of victory against the demons that assailed them. The mortal realms sought rest after so many years of war. But in the wake of the silent night, not even that was possible. Welcome back, everyone. I am the World Archivist, here to bring to you the stories of the wider multiverse. This week, we cover another one of the family factions, the Alabaster Liege. Those who were once of flesh, but are now of stone. Those forever tainted by the touch of demons. As always, if you enjoy this kind of content, do consider liking the video, leaving a comment for the algorithm. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. I post stories on a weekly basis. And if you want to make your own faction for If Worlds Collide, do consider joining us in the Discord. Link is in the description below. Now without further ado, on to the story.
You look tired, little man-thing,
purred the demon through the barrier.
You look weak.
Silence, fiend! Hissed the cloaked figure as he worked. But it was true. The mage was exhausted. All of the mages were. The brothers and sisters Arcanum had worked non-stop for months on this curse. This solution. No, the solution. And now it was time to put their blood, sweat, and tears to the test. The mage collected himself and turned to his king for approval. On high, seated at his alabaster throne, the king nodded and looked on. The mage bowed, turned, and tossed a mound of strange dust through the crackling barrier that kept the demon at bay. The demon coughed, snorted, and cackled at the mage. Its laughter filled the royal halls until suddenly, quite instantly, the demonic beast fell silent. The king rose to his feet, unsure if he could trust his weary eyes. The demon stood motionless, perfectly and utterly still, as its skin turned an ashen hue. Delighted, the king applauded the mage, who turned to his master and bowed deeply. The king returned to his seat, also quite exhausted himself. This war had raged for so long, had taken everything from the people of his world. But at last, it was over. The world would never more fear the nights, or the skies, or even the thoughts in one's own mind. At long last, the world would rest. The king waited for the mage to release his bow and claim his proper reward. But he never did. After many moments, an attendant gasped, then lifted the mage's heavy cloak to reveal that he too had succumbed to the effects of the dust.
"It is volatile, my love,"
spoke the queen, herself a member of the Arcanum.
"Too volatile."
The king saw the tears in her eyes, and with all his might, fought back his own. "If we cannot win," he finally spoke, "then we will rest." That night, by royal decree, the dust was released into the sky. It filled every corner of every land and passed silently into the demonic planes that were pushing into the mortal realm. By the end of the silent night, not a single living thing moved. The sun rose and set, and weather blew across a barren world, frozen in time, for centuries and centuries. Temples crumbled, baronies returned to loam, but not a single creature stirred. And yet, though the dust had turned all living flesh to stone, it could not staunch the corrupting aura of the demonic plane itself. Slowly, ploddingly, the foul taint spilled into the mortal world and found its statuesque inhabitants, though physically halted, had souls and minds ripe for possession. Centuries more passed with the mortal and demonic planes merged completely, and the stone-like creatures that were once human became completely saturated with fiendish energies. Although they've been suffused with vile magic, with no lands left to conquer and nothing left to corrupt, the alabaster monstrosities remain dormant and cold. Though they were demons at last, motionless they remained, until, finally, on the night of return, the first rift opened onto the land. Its shifting energy stirred something within the diabolic statues. The presence of endless worlds, endless opportunity, was all too enticing. Stone or not, the demons could remain still no longer. Deep within the royal halls, the ancient mage's joints cracked and creased, and finally it released its deep bow. With long, twisted fingers, it pulled back its cloak, revealing two sizzling coals that peered out from sunken eye sockets. With a deep inhale, it opened its lamprey-like mouth and unleashed a keen cry, calling all others to rise.